The four doors leading to peace. A man had spent many years, or perhaps many lives, traveling the roads of the world in search of inner peace. What is the secret, he wondered? Is it possible, or is it a chimera, a fantasy? Wherever he went, he would ask the same question. How to have inner peace, how to be calm, how to enjoy that peace that borders on happiness. One afternoon of those many afternoons, tired of walking on dusty roads, quite exhausted, he lay under a tree. Such was his weariness that he fell asleep almost instantly, and it was in his dreams while he slept the great secret he had been looking for so long was revealed to him. Among dreams he saw himself entering an ancient city, and what got his attention immediately was a large temple of old but beautiful and well-preserved walls, which had a huge door made of solid material that looked like gold, and there was in it an inscription that said, "There are four doors that lead to peace. This is the first one. Honor it." Excited, our traveler and searcher proceeded to knock with the thick knocker. He waited a while and nothing. He knocked again, but received no answer. Some minutes went by and he called again. This time, to his surprise, the big doors opened and he quickly entered. There was a huge hole. On the main wall, there was a large inscription that said, "Speak only what's necessary." He was alone in the great hall. He was somewhat disoriented and proceeded to sit down. A few minutes later, someone came out from the back of the room. It was an old man with the appearance of a monk, whom he could not identify. Sitting beside him, the man said to him, "Since you seek for inner peace, I will tell you that the first principle for this beautiful, deep, and mysterious purpose begins with speaking only what is necessary. You, dear friend, as the great majority of men and women of the planet, speak too much. 90% of your speech is unnecessary, mechanical, which means a great waste of vital energy. Also, in many cases, this mechanical speaking is negative, and it causes conflict, discord, disagreements, and evil among people." Our traveler and seeker then asked, what would be the right measure in his speech? And the monk replied, "Remember the teachings of a great master of humanity when he was asked how much we should speak. He answered, all you should say is yes, yes, no, no, and nothing else." Cracking a smile, he said, "I'm not telling you to go to such an extreme, but that's the direction. So, you go back to your life and ponder your words and speak only the right, what's necessary, and return in a year's time." And with that being said, he disappeared to where he came from. Our restless seeker spent a whole year trying to do the assigned task, and in truth, he discovered that 90% of his speech was unnecessary, but not only in him, but in other people too. He was able to verify how a simple question was answered by telling people off, or criticizing, or comparing, or even judging or qualifying. Sometimes the response was given with unnecessary details, and sometimes with mockery or angrily, and that in reality very few people responded adequately. After 1 year, he returned to the same place and knocked on the doors of the great temple. When he entered, a novice from the temple guided him in until they reached a second door, just as huge, inveterate, and beautiful as the other one. After a few minutes, they entered, and in the frontispiece of the ark that led to the room, there was a great inscription: "Think only what's necessary." After reading the sentence, he sat down, thinking about it, to the point of being absorbed. A slap on the shoulder brought him back. It was the same man from the previous door, who now told him, "This is the second door to the path to inner peace. Think only what's necessary. But before, tell me how you did with the previous task, to speak only what is necessary." He answered with a jest that he spoke only the necessary. But he said, "A new problem appeared before me. Although I no longer spoke outwardly, in my head there was a fierce internal chatter, or sometimes a tiring and noisy infernal dialogue, and sometimes a loud chattering assembly of thoughts, each of them pretending to be me. And in reality it was of no use for me to be silent outside, because then everything went to my mind, and I did not achieve the much desired peace. As I am saying, it was worse. You, dear friend, like the great majority of men and women of this planet, think too much. 98% of your thinking is unnecessary, mechanical, and which means a great waste of energy. And else, in many cases, this mechanical thinking is negative and is the cause of negative and troublesome actions and emotions. The traveler then asked him what would be the right measure in his thinking. And the monk replied, "Think only to solve problems or process information relevant to your life or your relationships, or remember in order to build, or imagine in order to plan, and especially think for creating. And remember that little voice of the mind that you think it's you, it's unnecessary. And that brooding on problems and worries anxiously that you call thinking is not thinking at all. It's just a waste of energy. Get rooted by feeling your body, being consciously aware of your breathing, in doing one thing at a time. That is the direction. So go back to your life and sharpen your attention. Think only the right, the necessary. And whenever you can, silence that mind. Make it rest. Give it a break. And come back in a year's time. And saying no more, he disappeared to where he came from. After 1 year, he returned and knocked back at the gates of the great temple. Upon being admitted, a novice from the temple led him through dark passages to the bottom until he reached the second door he knew. They knocked and the door opened. He was now led to a third door, just as huge and golden as the other one. After a few minutes, this third door opened and they entered. On the frontispiece of the ark that led to the room was a large inscription: "Feel only what is necessary." Once alone, in a posture of stillness, he read the sentence carefully. "Yes," he said, "my mind has indeed become more silent every time, but what I have not been able to silence are the emotions and feelings, sometimes associated with sensations in the body. On more than one occasion, having my mind serene, I have felt, for example, a kind of anguish, sometimes anxiety, like a strong, almost painful sensation in my chest. One time I experienced something like this, while being sad and restlessness. Although it has been sporadic, I cannot say that I have conquered any inner peace, or at least not fully, because those negative sensations have been present, disturbing my peace." "What you're saying is true," intervened the monk. "You, dear friend, as the great majority of men and women of the planet, feel too much. 98% of your feeling is unnecessary. Repetitive emotions, easily expressed. Furthermore, these emotions are often offspring of negative emotions that intoxicate people and the planet and are the cause of human suffering." The seeker then asked, "What would the right measure be?" And the monk replied, "The right measure to take is to express the positive, constructive, superior emotions, and not to live full of emotions produce repetitive thoughts or repetitive physical sensations. Let's not forget that in the end, speaking in a deep sense, emotions are also instruments of knowledge. In order to do this, do not only feel your body and pay conscious attention to your breathing, but be also very attentive to your sensations and observe your emotions, feelings, and states of mind, even when you feel neutral or indifferent. So now, go back to your life and focus your attention on your feelings and emotions, not allowing them to express themselves in a mechanical and worse yet negative way. And when you can, silence that emotional mind and make it rest, and come back in a year's time to see your progress." And that being said, the monk proceeded to withdraw. After a year had passed, he returned and knocked on the front doors of the great temple. When he entered, a temple novice led him several successive doors to a fourth door. After a few minutes, this fourth door opened and they entered. On the frontispiece of the ark that led to the hall, there was a large inscription: "True peace comes from true silence, and true silence is the absence of ego." As he read the inscription, 7 monks met him and invited him to sit in one of the beautiful seats covered in fine marble. The eldest monk said to him, "I can see you have achieved complete peace. Could you tell us how is this possible, since you haven't worked on the inscription shown when passing the fourth door?" He, sitting in silence, emanating from his interior a great calm, said, It's been an act of grace, a blessing, or a reward product of previous efforts. When working on the external speaking and the physical expressions that accompany it, and then on that myriad of thinking that pretend to be me, when I realize that I am not that voice that speaks, and finally, by not allowing sensations transformed into feelings and mechanical emotions take me over, grace happened. Because when they fell, the ghost created by them also fell. The ego, that imaginary me that usurps the true me. So now I can say from the depths of me, I know the silence that surpasses all understanding, and that behind it there is the peace that I've been seeking so much through my life and my lives. Namaskar.